Hey, Chrissy here. I am a landscape architect and the owner of Kismet Design. I am a very process-driven designer, and I love sharing what I do and how I do it with anyone who's interested. Reaching your true potential and achieving your own personal goals will not happen by chance. You have to set your intentions, make a plan, and do the work. Thank you for joining me to nerd out on design. Don't forget to subscribe and to share too. Let's create something great together. So as you build and grow, for me, like as I'm looking at, new plans for the next 1, 3, 5 years, I also like it just inherently, I think about like where I've come from, and like the things, how far I've grown, the things that I've overcome. What have been some of the biggest struggles that you have overcome either as a designer or as a business owner?
That's a really good question. I think my mental health journey. Um, I am a very sensitive, loving empath, and I can articulate that very well now because of all of the years of struggle and mental health professionals that I have sought out. I think being in a design program, like a landscape architecture program, I found to be extremely difficult and a very stressful environment. So I think those were some of the most difficult years as a designer, to figure out how to manage my depression, my anxiety. Yeah, over the years, I have figured out what anxiety is, what it feels like, what it looks like. And I laugh now because, my goodness, to be an anxious person and to be a designer, I don't know if those two things work really well together, but it actually makes me a very conscientious designer. And I think it's a superpower, but it doesn't always feel great. And my mental health journey now has led me to understand what it looks like, what it feels like, and I can plan for it. I'm not scared of those feelings anymore. Um, I also talk to a therapist once a week, and it's part of my wellness plan, and it makes me a better Kelley. It makes me a better designer, a better friend, a better partner, a better daughter. So it's essential, and I have no problem sharing that deeply personal piece about myself, because I think others probably would benefit to know that. So yeah, mental health. It has been a journey, and it's really a gift because, again, I'm a very thoughtful designer. So I go through a lot of deep thinking when it comes to making design decisions. And that also ties into whether I am a good designer. That was something that I struggled with to answer. That made me leave my nonprofit experience at that wonderful local nonprofit, and I left there to seek answers to that question. And yeah, I was able to answer that ultimately.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that that's
Yeah.
wonderful. And I think that I find that there's quite a few, myself included, designers that run really high anxiety. And you wake
Yeah.
up at night thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't I didn't label that right. I need to change the design. Like you just
Oh yeah.
it's hard to put things down when your mind just kind of takes over and spins sometimes. But I think it's really good to have those open conversations, and especially mentoring students that are in that realm, that that's where I think a lot of it is, whether it's released or learned or what. But that studio environment can be really, really intense. And I think that having that voice of wisdom on one side, like giving them the confidence and the understanding and the empathy of, I know what you're going through. I know how hard it is. I know, what you're thinking and what your questions are. I think that that's amazing.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and it's also good to hear that I'm not alone with all of the anxious circles that my brain will spin in.
Sometimes
Yeah,
it's really productive, but a lot of times it's really not.
no, yeah, when I talked to my therapist, my goodness, I talked about work often, about sometimes certain design challenges. I talk about sometimes difficult personalities. Sometimes I talk about, should I have said that? Oh my goodness. Like, and these are just like probably normal human experiences, but which so great having someone to bounce ideas off of, because my brain might focus on those things a little bit more than other people. So yeah, it's really helpful. Yeah, and yeah, like we said, conscientiousness is a superpower. I think when you're starting out your life and you don't really know why your brain is doing something that it's doing, or why you're having a feeling or a thought, it's really, really scary. And it doesn't have to be scary. And I love being able to share that, like you said, with young designers. They don't have to be scared. Nothing is wrong with you. Your brain is responding exactly how a brain should
Yeah.
respond. So that's great, because when I was experiencing that in school, I didn't have someone to talk me down. I was just, my mom was like, "Why are you always so stressed? And why are you always crying? Like, what's wrong? You're great. Your ideas are wonderful. What's going on?" I'm like, "I don't know, mom. I'm not good. I can't design."
Yeah.
She's like, "Get out of here." And yeah, that's all, obviously it's hard to take advice from mom, because you're like, it's mom.
Yeah.
Of course she's gonna love me no matter what, but am I a good designer? That's what
Yeah.
matters. But no, that's not the most important piece.
Yeah. For sure. So as you go through this and as you mentor other designers and work on your business growing and really kind of putting that energy out into the world through your clients, your contractors, everyone, where do you find inspiration? Is there someone in particular that you're finding really inspiring right now? Book, podcasts?
That's a really good one. I find a lot of inspiration from intersectional disciplines, often, like you said, podcasts. So I love listening to Hidden Brain. I
I
love
love
listening
that one.
to, it's such a good one. The TED Radio Hour, 99% Invisible. I do also like Freakonomics. I like Design Matters with Debbie. So yeah, podcasts are a go-to for me. I also like, let's see. So I'm always looking at the craftsmen women who are building our work, and I'm always watching and listening and asking for opinions on our work. As I would say, hey, do you think we solved this problem in this particular spot in an effective way? Do you see us being able to do this in a more cost effective way, a simpler way? So I love learning and being inspired by the folks that build our work. Um, I have a moment in particular when it comes to like designers who I'm inspired by. There was a moment when we had Joe Thompson speak to our APLD chapter, and Joe mentioned that she had a project for an installation. It might have been temporary, but I think it was an installation where they were going to be addressing loneliness and the epidemic of loneliness. And I just really, that spoke to me because of my mental health background, and just the human experience. I mean, we all know what loneliness feels like. And I thought, wow, how brilliant is that she's going to try to address this issue and bring awareness to it through landscape design. So when I hear designers talking like that with the aligned values, I'm like, oh my gosh, can we get coffee? Can we get dinner? Even like talking to you, I mean, listening to your podcast, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'll put that on and go take a jog, or even when I'm on my way to different client visits, it's the time when I get to just sit and think, and it's the best.
I do the same thing, and it sounds like our podcast listening list is very, very similar.
Yeah.
I love it. I nerd
Awesome.
out on it, and I do the same thing, like, to and from client meetings, even getting ready in the morning, like, that's usually every now and then it's an audiobook, but usually it's podcasts, and I listen to a lot of interior design podcasts too, because it's, it's all the same stuff, it's just different medium, and there's an amazing amount of material out for interior designers where I feel like landscape design, it's pretty skimpy, but that's right,
Yeah.
we're changing it.
We're we're totally changing it. There was a lady who had a podcast, and I think she was a wedding planner slash designer. I'll have to look for it and share it with you so you can put it in the notes. But it
Yeah,
was fabulous because it's so high wire act and it's like for this whole experience that you're planning for. But I thought I learned so much from listening to her and all the elements and pieces that were needed to pull off that experience. And it's yeah, it's moments like that where I'm listening and I'm thinking, oh, that's fantastic. That's so clever. Or like the account when I was looking for accountants, there was this incredible accountant who I'm still in touch with, who taught me the 15-minute intro call thing where we will do a free 15-minute intro call just to learn about your project and to share ideas and to see if there is alignment there. And it was a game changer. It's
makes
so low risk and you can tell a lot from people with their body language, whether or not they're going to respect your time. Plenty of people have gone over that time and won't even say a word. And I make a little mental note about that. So, yeah, so many other industries that we can learn from. My partner, she just finished up nursing school, and I have learned so much about how she studies, how that industry puts professional development information out there, and what platforms. And it's just I'm always learning, uh, yeah, from other industry leaders.
I love it. That's awesome. So I've got a couple other questions before we wrap up because we're kind of about time, and I know you've got all kinds of stuff to do for the rest of your day. First of all, do you have any questions for me?
Questions for you. I'm gonna pose one for you that I grappled with. What do you think makes a designer a good designer?
I really think one of the best skills a designer can possess is kind of twofold. So I think it's being adaptable and being able to change and think creatively, but being a really good listener. I find that there's a lot of designers that create these amazing designs, but it's always kind of the same thing. And maybe that's partially because they're getting the same type of clients. But I find the designers that inspire me the most and that I find the most amazing are ones that have very drastically different designs, and you can really tell they're very invested in their clients and creating a space for that individual instead of what them as a designer thinks is good design. I think
Oh,
that there's a big challenge
good.
to that.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah, curiosity and kindness and good listening. Because we can teach people how to design, right? We can teach design, but it's hard to teach someone how to be, um, yeah, kind and curious and even a good listener. Like those are skills that take a long time to learn, and they're essential.
Well, and I think that design, like the relationship between a client, residential, obviously in commercial work and community work, it's a different dynamic, but especially for residential clients, I think that the relationship between a designer and a client is really, it's a really important relationship. Like it's, that intro call is kind of like, speed dating a little bit. Like you want to get to know that, yeah, you're going to spend a long time with this person. You're going to have to communicate effectively, and you're going to have to make sure that you really understand their values, their ideas, their needs, how their family functions, like how how they want, their dynamic with their kids to be when they're in their space. And are they designing a space where all of their kids and all of their friends are coming over, or do they need this quiet recluse place? Like, I've done a lot of designs for ER nurses that just want a secluded, quiet, personal space just for them and them alone. And then you design something where, I've got a client right now that they're like, we do parties like once a month with like 60 to 80 people. And I'm like,
So different.
whoa, so different. But I think,
Yeah.
if I went into with the same mindset for every client,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be delivering good design. Even if it's pretty, it doesn't matter if it's pretty. It matters if it works for the client and if they love it.
Snaps, girl. Snaps. Agreed.
So other than the podcast that you mentioned that I will try and get on the show notes, and I'll have to have you send me a link to that quote. That quote is amazing. I will put that in the show notes too.
Awesome.
Are there any other books or resources that you love that you would like me to also include?
Sure. I really love listening to and reading Adam Grant's work. So, yeah, he's an organizational psychologist. I first heard about him when I was in college. My dad worked for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, so he was the federal government. And so he did some trainings where his work was brought up at the time. And he was like, have you heard of this person? And I hadn't, and this was like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe. And yeah, I've been in love with Adam and his way of thinking and his research ever since. So I have many of his books. So I would highly recommend looking up any of his books. I also have a couple here with me that I love. I actually found out about James Clear's book from I think he spoke with Adam, but his book Atomic Habits. I absolutely love it. Lauren and David wrote The Human Element. That's another really great one that I love. And one I got when I started that I found to bring me a lot of confidence and ideas was the Grace Bonney in the Company of Women, where she profiles a bunch of creatives and asks them a sets of questions, and they have wonderful responses and real, authentic, gritty responses sometimes. So I really I really appreciate them. So yeah, I'd say they're my go-tos.
I love it. The first two, I
Yeah.
consume everything Adam Grant.
Yeah, me
I
too.
actually found him because I had a slight obsession with Simon Sinek. And
Yeah.
I heard Simon Sinek do a talk where he was talking about this interview that he had to basically be up next to Adam Grant. And he was like, I compared myself to him. There's no one in the world that made me more self-conscious than him. And he goes, we were on the stage and I just said, you make me really uncomfortable. And it was really like, he didn't say who he was at the time when I was listening to this. And I like went down the rabbit hole to try and figure out like who makes Simon Sinek so uncomfortable and question his whole like life's work. And then they became friends and obviously do a lot of stuff together. But yeah, I thought that was really, really interesting. Have you started reading Adam Grant's latest book, Hidden Potential?
Have not. I've seen him on MSNBC and I think CNN making his rounds, but yeah, so
I'm
good.
like halfway through it. It's amazing, especially with your education background. You would love, love, love it.
Oh, good. You just triggered another thought. There are two women that have a fitness and confidence building business out of Canada, outside of Calgary. I can't remember specifically where it is, but they're called Tactic. And I just appreciate, again, this is like that intersectional piece where they're doing a completely different service, but they are working with the public. And doing fitness stuff is all about behavior change. And I feel like that is aligned with a lot of times what we end up needing to do, because I try to design with a lot of native plants and do ecological design. So finding ways to present information and change where people aren't as intimidated about it. So I think that they're really inspiring, and they're doing it in a way that I haven't seen a lot of folks do, where it's authentic, it's loving, but it's also real. Sometimes it's gritty. Yeah, and it's two ladies. They're in love. They're married. They're funny. They're millennials. Like I'm sure that I like it for those reasons too. But it's something also I forgot, Chrissy, to mention about some of the biggest struggles I've overcome. I'd say in the last couple of years of the pandemic, my physical health, I have neglected to take care of my body. I've been doing a lot of sitting and bossing, doing the boss thing, and I have been pretty sedentary. So I've had weird issues with piriformis and just body stuff, and even what do you call it? Goodness, carpal tunnel, beginnings of that from using the computer stuff. So I've neglected my body. So they've also helped me understand how to make those changes, because it's really about changing your schedule and your usage patterns. So last year was a lot of that, analyzing what I do, why I do it, what's my schedule, how can I change it. Um, yeah, that's a tangent, but that's how my brain works. I hope that's helpful.
No, absolutely. I think it's great. And it's, you know, kind of as a testament to you can learn something from anybody. Like you don't have to just focus
Yeah.
on, you know, the people that do what you do. Like
Yeah.
it's so broad, and finding inspiration and passion anywhere.
Yeah, it's the I have a quote on my website it's from Mickey Fern about innovation grows in the gaps within the disciplines. And I heard him say that in person at the New Directions for the American Landscape Conference 4 years ago. And I just bawled. I was bawling after his talk. It was so powerful, and I heard him say that. I was like, "Gosh, that's so true." It's at least I feel that way. I think that's where we make our biggest strides is when we're listening, like you said, to others.
Well, and I especially like you had mentioned some of the architects that you work with, and those collaborators are such a huge value. And I think that they, especially as a business owner or working from a home office, you can get really isolated and kind of just uh, lonely is not the right word, but it's very isolating sometimes. And having those collaborators and having those people that push you to think differently and try new things and put forth challenges that you have to think in an alternate way about. I've got an architect that I work with that does the same thing, and he's always like, this is what I think this should look like. And I'm like, on one hand, I'm like, stay in your lane. But on the other hand, I'm like, that's really interesting. Like that's, you know, you're pushing me, you know, out of my typical kind of, you know, how I would approach a design. And I think that having those outside influences is huge.
I was going to tell you too that the loneliness piece, I felt that for sure in the beginning, and I think that's also a reason why. Not only do I love mentoring, but it's just so exciting and thrilling to work with other people. And I am a type of designer that enjoys watching other people grow and thrive. I don't know totally why I am that way, but I embrace it, and I think it's a beautiful thing. It's not the type of designer that I think gets typically pedestaled. I actually love seeing other people grow and thrive and putting their ideas into fruition. So yeah, I it's the best. It's a gift, and yeah, it's purpose.
I think it's that energy that when we met a couple months ago, I was like, I need to hear more from her.
Yeah.
Because I totally agree. It's like there's something about like giving someone information and being like, this is how I do it. This is, you know, the things that you should know. And then give them a little shove. And then it's like, oh my gosh, look at how far you ran with that. Like I would never have taken it in that direction. Like I find so much inspiration and excitement out of that. It's really fun.
It's really fun. It's the best.
Well, thank you so much for all of your time. I know we went a little bit over, but I appreciate it so much. I'm gonna re-listen and take notes, and I'll put all those links in the show notes for everybody.
Yeah.
And then I will also put links to your website, your social media, anywhere else what's the best way for people to contact you to learn more about you and your team?
Yeah, I'd say that they should absolutely follow us on Instagram for an unvarnished look of what it's like day to day and what inspires me as a designer. It's I don't know if you remember the movie Home Alone
Of
when
course.
Kevin was so afraid of the furnace in the basement. I have found that having your own business allows you to speak your truth and to be who you are and to not be afraid anymore. And I feel like I'm getting more loud and more radical as I get older. I think because I just see how important it is to play that role in our field. So that is the type of content you'll get on Instagram is like when Kevin was like screaming at the top of his lungs, I'm not afraid anymore. Because yeah, we're uniquely positioned, like I said, not working for a big company, and we're representing ourselves to really push the needle. And I love it. It's so cool. But make sure, Chrissy, you got to keep me honest. Make sure I don't become too kooky, right? I got to make sure I've got some guardrails.
No, I love it. I love it. And that is like the perfect visual. It's yes, so true. I love it.
Yeah. But yeah, Instagram and yeah, the World Wide Web is where folks can find me, and I'm very approachable. I answer all of my DMs, and I often do local coffee chats if people are here. If not, I do Zoom intro calls with folks just looking to get into the industry. So I'm here as a resource. Talk to a lot of people looking to potentially transition to landscape design, and I'll always be there if folks want to chat.
Wonderful. That's a really good for everybody to know that you're a valuable resource out there.
Yep. Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Chrissy. This is so cool.
To wrap up, I want to thank you for your time. I hope the ideas discussed today have left you feeling excited and energized. As I build both my business and my life, I value the support and feedback you provide. I would love for you to reach out to me to let me know what you think, give me ideas, or just to connect. Please don't forget to subscribe and also share with a friend. Until next time, go create something wonderful.